It ought to have become abundantly obvious to everyone by now that there's a bit of a shortage of heavy goods vehicle or HGV drivers, and the knock-on effects of that are being felt in the supermarkets with empty shelves and empty pumps on the petrol forecourt, with massive queues forming for what little they have left. Of course, there is one very obvious reason for why this has happened, and that's the botched job Brexit. Boris Johnson sold us as oven ready, something he knows was a botched job, as he's been trying to rewrite what he signed with the EU ever since. But do you think he'll admit it? No, the nation's top liar simply doubles down on the lies. So how do we fix our HGV shortage then? Despite the best efforts of some of the tabloid trash to paint this issue as not a Brexit problem, it blatantly is. A shop in Belgium with empty shelves is being pointed at as proof to these hacks that Europe has the same problems we do. But one shop in one country doesn't prove anything, particularly when the shop in question, Carrefour's or however it's pronounced, is currently affected by strike action at its logistics division, hence the supply problems there. If our free and fearless press were just a bit more honest and tried attempting something loosely resembling journalism from time to time, they'd stop ignoring the elephant in the room that has made this situation worse: Brexit. I say make this situation worse because there was already a shortage of HGV drivers before Brexit, before COVID too, of some 60,000 drivers, because fundamentally it's hard work and long hours for little gain. We have the work, we have the vehicles, but we've lost so many drivers on top of the shortages we already had that that's the crux of the matter. The shortage in drivers has risen from that 60,000 figure at the end of 2019 to over 100,000 people now. The UK has been extremely reliant on foreign workers, particularly EU nationals, to fill some of these driving jobs we already had shortages in. But thanks to Brexit, we've lost that valuable source of qualified, trained, experienced workers, prepared to work for an unfair day's wages, as so many of us have to do. That is the single biggest issue in this story. It's taken a while for those effects to be felt, which has given those same trash rag news outlets the chance to blame the pandemic, with all the sickness days taken, the isolation, the lockdowns. COVID has aggravated the situation, certainly, but it has not caused it. COVID didn't create a shortage of drivers that dates back to before it existed. A bad Brexit deal, EU nationals deciding the UK is no longer a place for them to stay and put down roots, has done far more damage. Freedom of movement ended in January of 2020, meaning any that would still be willing to come here and fill these jobs no longer could, without miles of red tape to jump through, without increased costs to them. And that was all further compounded by the racist attitudes of too much of our media and too many people buying into that, looking for someone to blame for how hard their lives were. The whole foreigners coming over here taking our jobs has revealed starkly that they weren't our jobs, else we wouldn't have any problem filling them now, would we? Pay is another issue. It's crap for what it is. And in April, ironically, a tax loophole called IR35, where drivers effectively called themselves limited companies rather than employees in order to pay less tax, was closed. HMRC closing a tax loophole. They can do it, see, but little surprise they go after the little guys trying to save a few quid in income tax rather than billion-dollar global corporations getting mates rates, though, eh? The pay isn't great for the work they do. You can argue over the morality of anyone exploiting a loophole, sure, but it too has had an impact, particularly as this will again put off EU workers who typically came here from coming back. But right or wrong, this has had an effect too. Poor pay wasn't always the case, though, with driving a goods vehicle. Well thought of, well-regarded work it once was, delivering essentials for all kinds of other industries, trades and businesses, keeping the country running. From a logistics perspective, it was utter stupidity to allow pay and conditions to flounder and to foment an attitude that it wasn't skilled work. Who wants to be sneered and looked down on for their work? Who wants an attitude of, oh, anyone can do your job, as so often they've been accused of? It's a way of driving down pay and conditions by twisting people's perspectives of the work, so they support those cuts. But the side effect of that is it puts people off from considering it as a career option too going forwards, aggravating the shortages that already existed and have grown. According to the Road Haulage Association, the average age of a haulage driver now is 55. And without younger people taking up the haulage trade, for that is what it is, a trade, a skilled one, to drive such monstrous vehicles is a skill. So this is a situation set to get steadily worse in the years to come if something meaningful isn't done about it. So let's train more people here then, Damo. Wonderful idea. According to hgvtraining.net, it only takes about 5 days to train to drive an HGV vehicle, but the entire process, including getting your license, can take up to 10 weeks. 10 weeks? Why so long? Well, the DVLA are the license issuing body, and they've been hammered with COVID so hard, they ended up taking strike action over the lack of mitigations in their workplace. From September last year through to January of this year, 10% of their workforce, some 600 workers, tested positive. They're still playing catch-up, essentially. Hardly surprising when you consider they receive 60,000 pieces of correspondence a day to process. So when you hear on the news about the government making the tests easier to ensure more people pass them, talking about removing elements such as reversing an HGV vehicle or hitching one up to a trailer, do appreciate the fact that it's blind panic driving them to say this shit, because the DVLA still can't issue the licenses any faster. To give you an idea of where the DVLA is right now, according to their coronavirus guidance page, they're currently processing vocational driving license renewals sent in July. We're in October. First vocational licenses are being fast-tracked, but they're still taking a month. And this is happening at the expense of other licenses, such as ordinary provisionals, of which they're still working through applications they received in August. Lots of people wanting ID for this, that, and the other while going out are going to be waiting a while. Now, the Tories have made a complete lash-up of this, clearly, from treating lorry drivers with contempt or abuse, taking them for granted, to driving them away with their catastrophic Brexit, affecting plenty of other industries too, through the loss of EU workers. Johnson's oven-ready deal, yet no turkeys for Christmas, another notable one right now. They're getting pretty desperate to fix this, extending drivers' hours, which is just completely unsafe when they work long hours anyway. Offering small pay rise is not really worth the mention. And with fast-track visas now being issued to beg EU workers back, despite being only short-term, and not being funny, if I'd been treated as they've been over this, I'd be putting my feet up with some popcorn on the continent and watch our country grind to a halt as deliveries get worse. There's no incentive to give up well-paid, reliable work they've likely secured on the continent to come back here for a few months before once more being told to fuck off back where you come from. Calling it a U-turn when Johnson has only extended a 3-month visa to a 6-month one still isn't an incentive. Of course, the other tactic being employed by the Tories right now is to deny there's a problem. Michael Green / Sebastian Fox / Grant Shapps, the Transport Minister, is determined there is no petrol shortage and that we have plenty. The trouble is, and people really aren't buying into this one, is that it's all well and good if it's at the depots. You're technically correct. But when it's not getting to the pumps, they're running dry, you're stupid enough to tell people not to panic buy, knowing that's exactly what they will do, with the most selfish filling up a boot full of cans whilst they're at it. If the Tories weren't so desperate to fix this, they'd probably praise such self-serving attitudes. It's what a Tory would do themselves, after all. Then there's a goddamn bloody shortage. It's catastrophic when it's carers unable to fill up, ambulances unable to fill up. But hey, who needs ambulances when money is more important? Did you see what Johnson himself has said?
There's some businesses, but
I've given you the most important metric, which is, never mind life expectancy, never mind, cancer outcomes. Or look at wage growth.
As if Johnson needed to remind us what a sociopath he is. Never mind life expectancy, never mind cancer outcomes. The most important metric is wage growth, according to him. That comb-dodging bastard has had letters sent out to everyone holding an HGV license, including ambulance and fire engine drivers, literally anyone, asking them to consider a career in haulage instead. Let the bodies pile high in their thousands, he said. The over-80s should be more worried about the economy, he said. Now it's never mind anybody whose home is on fire or who might be having a heart attack. Money, 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 always money, and never the well-being of the people of this country. And now he wants to lose ambulance drivers to fill the need to deliver food to shops and fuel to forecourts. They were warned for months supply chains would collapse, and we're watching it happen. Lives do not matter to this man or his party, and with an opposition led by somebody just as bad. It feels pretty hopeless right now. So how do we fix it, really? Bring the army in? Well, what are they going to do realistically? They're supposed to be there to defend the country, not make sure you have a bloody milk in the morning. And it's a sticking plaster solution anyway. It's not a lasting one. As I've said already, the problems in haulage have been there for years and years. It's a consequence of devaluing employment across the board. It's just the industry that happens to be in the limelight right now. People are not paid enough to live on, and if they were treated with respect, there would be no trouble recruiting the next generation of hauliers. An average age of 55 shows this has been going on a long time. You aren't going to train 100,000 drivers overnight either, even if you could find enough applicants. Not only do proper terms of employment and conditions and rights for EU drivers to come back, or indeed come from anyone else, really need to be implemented immediately, whilst incentivising people properly to enter this trade as well and fix this problem for the long term. But this is going to expose the same shortcomings, the same breakdown of the societal contract in other industries too, as time wears on. Brexit is proving to be every bit the complete clusterfuck we feared it would be, implemented by and overseen by the weakest minds imaginable, as it has been. Continuing to deny it as more people wake up to the reality is going to cause more and more unrest, particularly in the run-up to Christmas, which Boris Johnson will not be able to keep lying his way out of forever.